a name like Cape Epic, you know it's a race for the elites of mountain biking. And while we can't tell you who won this year's event, the grueling 8-day ordeal in South Africa doesn't wrap up till Sunday, we can give you a sense of how challenging the course is. It covers more than 374 miles, an average of almost 47 per day off-road. If you prefer downhill, you'd probably hate it. The course has more than 10 miles of climbing. Organizers say entry slots sell out right away for what's known as the Tour de France of mountain biking, and many competitors enter a lottery for a chance to ride here. They do that in teams of 2 that have to stick together throughout the race. The Cape Epic is dry, it's hot. Every team has to carry an emergency button in case they get in trouble somewhere remote. And while hundreds compete in the men's and women's events, there are a few champions who've stood on the podiums before and ride for another epic victory. Welcome to the world from A to Z with Carl Azuz. And I'm thankful to be part of your Wednesday. A ceasefire has fallen apart in the Middle East. It took effect in January and involved the nation of Israel and the Palestinian militant group Hamas, which controls the territory of Gaza. Their latest war began in 2023 after Hamas launched a terrorist attack that killed 1,200 people in Israel and took about 250 others as hostages. Since then, the health ministry run by Hamas says tens of thousands of Palestinians have been killed in Gaza. It doesn't say how many are Hamas fighters and how many are civilians. Over the months of war, some of the hostages Hamas took died while in captivity. Some were released, and dozens were freed as part of the recent ceasefire agreement, while Israel freed almost 2,000 Palestinian prisoners. But the two warring sides couldn't agree on the next steps. Israel wants Hamas to release all of the remaining hostages. 24 are believed to still be alive. Hamas wants Israel to pull all of its forces out of Gaza. Which of these things happens first was a major hang-up, and the first phase of the ceasefire ended 2 weeks ago. On Monday, Israel accused Hamas of repeatedly refusing to release more hostages and rejecting U.S. peace proposals. And Israeli fighter jets resumed bombing the Palestinian territory, killing more than 400 people, according to Hamas. The militant group accused Israel of breaking and overturning the ceasefire agreement and for leaving the hostages, quote, to an unknown fate. What happens to them, what happens to Palestinian civilians displaced by war, the path to peace, and the future of the region are all unknown at this point.
Word of knowledge. Which of these projects cost the most to build? Burj Khalifa skyscraper, International Space Station, Large Hadron Collider, Channel Tunnel. In terms of man-made objects, nothing comes close to the $150 billion cost of the International Space Station.
After being stuck on the ISS for 9 months on a mission originally supposed to last 8 days, NASA astronauts Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore were scheduled to come home last night. The Boeing spacecraft that took them up last summer had too many problems to bring them back down, so a SpaceX capsule that took a new crew to the ISS Friday was set to bring Williams, Wilmore, and 2 other crew members back to Earth, or at least the ocean, Tuesday evening.
Scammers keep up with the times, and with a lot of job cuts in the headlines, consumer advocates say job hunters need to protect themselves. Job scams were already on the rise. The Federal Trade Commission said reports of job scams and fake employment agencies nearly tripled between 2020 and 2024. And the Better Business Bureau also ranked job scams among their riskiest scams of last year, with consumers more likely to lose money or experience identity theft. Among red flags the BBB has seen recently, unsolicited phone calls, texts, and emails about job opportunities, conducting interviews via text, and refusing phone or video chat. Fast job offers that ask for Social Security and banking information under the guise of setting up direct deposit, and work-from-home jobs that involve receiving and reshipping packages, potentially illegally obtained goods. BBB spokesperson Melanie McGovern says taking time to research a company can help job hunters avoid costly mistakes.
The best thing to do whenever you come across a job listing, if it's on a third-party site, even if it's a trusted site, go to that employer's homepage. Not through the link that is provided, but go do a search for that company.
In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
On this date in world history. On March 19, 2003, the United States entered a military conflict against Iraq for the second time in 12 years. President George W. Bush ordered airstrikes against the Middle Eastern nation as the U.S. and dozens of allied countries fought to remove Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein from power. They believed his country illegally held weapons of mass destruction, but none were ever found. Hussein's government collapsed 3 weeks after the conflict began, and he was arrested later that year, found guilty of crimes against humanity, and executed in 2006. On this date in 1918, U.S. President Woodrow Wilson signed a bill establishing the periods of standard and daylight saving time. It meant turning the clock forward an hour in the spring and back an hour in the fall. The law also created 5 time zones across America. And March 19, 1911 was the first time International Women's Day was observed. The organization says more than 1 million people turned out in 4 European countries to support women's suffrage and the right to hold public office and to protest discrimination. The event has evolved and expanded since then and is now celebrated annually on March 8th. Another historic event, the Battle of Britain, raged from July to September in 1940. It was a ferocious fight in the sky. The Luftwaffe Air Force of Nazi Germany tried and failed to lay the groundwork for an invasion of the United Kingdom in World War II. British forces successfully defended their island. And the last surviving British pilot who fought in the battle, John Paddy Hemingway, passed away Monday at age 105. The British Broadcasting Corporation says Group Captain Hemingway was shot down 4 times during the war and had to bail out twice. The Royal Air Force awarded him the Distinguished Flying Cross for acts of valor and bravery, and it said his death this week signaled the end of an era and the poignant reminder of the sacrifices made by those who fought for freedom during the Second World War.
History isn't only in textbooks, it's all around you. At Educational Travel Adventures, we take students beyond the classroom and out into the world. Your adventure starts here.
Is it constitutional? Connecticut was the first U.S. state to ratify the Constitution. True or false? Answer here, false. Delaware was the first state to ratify it, but Connecticut is nicknamed the Constitution State because it passed a governing document of its own in 1639. The fundamental orders of Connecticut are what made it the Constitution State, and that's where Mr. Luzzy's or Luzzy's class is watching. James Hillhouse High School is in the city of New Haven. Making a stop in Georgia, we see the Warriors watching from Needwood Middle School. Miss Hildebrandt's class is in the city of Brunswick. And from the town of Breaux Bridge, Louisiana, a warm welcome to Coach Autry's class. Cecilia High School is the home of the Bulldogs.
Michigan DNR officials were excited to report the first sighting in more than 100 years of cougar cubs living in the state's wild. According to a DNR specialist, the 2 cubs were the first verified since the big cats were hunted out of existence in the state in the early 1900s. Over the years, there have been verified sightings of adult male cougars, but the agency says this recent confirmation of cubs could signal the first known reproduction of the endangered species in modern times in the western Great Lakes states.
12 years after it was named the world's ugliest animal, the blobfish has won a more appealing title. Oh, it's still true that a U.S. government agency describes it as a, quote, big blobby tadpole, just a mass of pale jelly-like flesh with puffy loose skin, a big nose, and beady staring eyes. But hey, it's distinctive, and the blobfish just became New Zealand's Fish of the Year. It's native to waters in the region, and not a lot is known about it, aside from the fact that its lack of a skeleton makes it sag to an unhappy expression when it's pulled from deeper water. Anyway, winning Fish of the Year helps raise awareness for conservation efforts. No reason why Blobby McBlobfish shouldn't have a day in the sun. Well, I mean, as long as he's a fish out of water. He was never fishing for compliments. He's been trolled, if not trawled. He's entitled to have his own fin club, and he was certainly angling for a spot in line to be the catch of the day for one extraordinary fish story. We were quick to take the bait to reel in his tail, and we are glad you sailed with us. I'm Azuz for the World from A to Z.